welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here, we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited about today's conversation and today's guest because we are joined by Jordan Laurelle, who talks all about magnetism and manifestation. She helps you embody your most magnetic self with style, mental health, personal power, and manifestation. And those are some of the key topics that we talk about in today's conversation. As you all know, it is February. It is the month where everyone's talking about relationships and love. And I think it is so important to shed light on different sides of the conversation. And Jordan and I kind of go all over the place and go deep in some really interesting topics that I'm really excited to share. I also had the privilege of doing a session with Jordan a couple of weeks ago talking about my relationship with relationships and with myself, and it was a really profound, special experience, and I'm glad I got to have that connection with Jordan beforehand, and we talk a little bit about that in the conversation as well. I will keep this intro short because we do go in depth, but I hope you love it. I hope you leave feeling more trusting and connected to yourself and knowing that you are on your perfect path. Jordan, welcome to the podcast. I have been so looking forward to having you here and to having this conversation. So thank you for taking the time.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've been excited as well, especially since we got to connect a little bit and I got to know you a little bit last month. So I'm very happy to be here.
I know it's always so nice to have a connection point before we come onto the podcast because I feel like we already have this foundational level of connection that helps us go even deeper. So I'm glad we had that too. So first question, what is something you wish people knew about you that you don't think many do?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I don't think anybody's asked me that before on a podcast. Hmm. I think sometimes it took me a little while to realize this, and I've had actually several partners reflect this to me, but apparently I can come across as kind of like intimidating and really put together. And I guess I feel like I'm such a soft, sensitive person. And so I guess for those who don't know me and kind of maybe see this more, I'm a Virgo rising. So I think that's where it comes from. And I have always been like, performance based, especially for my upbringing, was very much about perfect grades and performing perfect on the piano and having a master's in piano performance. There's so much on being polished and put together and presenting like a final product. So I think that's kind of how I've been conditioned to show up that way. But I really want people to know my heart and just how I really care deeply about people and getting to know them on a deep level. And just that I'm I'm a very sensitive person.
That is so interesting. And this is the first question I start off all my conversations with. And one time someone asked me it back, and that was really similar, honestly, to my answer. The
Hmm.
fact that I just wanted people to know my heart and how sensitive I was and how much I cared. And maybe I have my sun and moon in Virgo, so maybe it's something about this Virgo
Mhm.
energy, this exterior. But I think it really does speak to the fact that what people see of us isn't always not necessarily who we are, but all layers of who we are. And it's not like we're trying to be a certain way for other people. It's just that everyone's going to see us the way that they see us. And there's different layers to who we are. And we can't always control that aspect of us.
hmm It's so interesting. And we even chatted a little bit about intimacy and how deeply we let people get to know us or, how well they actually can see us for who we really are. And it can be really, I know for me, one of the biggest blocks to sharing that really like soft, sensitive, lovey part of myself has been rejection that I experienced growing up. Like I was homeschooled, and so I was always like, I was an outcast and not cool and made fun of and was always like other. And so I think it taught me that it wasn't safe to be myself. And so I think I also kind of constructed guards to how much I let people in, how quickly, because I didn't want to, I guess, get rejected again. So it's such an interesting topic because I think it's what people crave the most. We crave so deeply to be seen and loved for who we are. But it's like the hardest thing to let people actually see us. Because what if they don't love us for who we are? So I think it's like one of those core wounded areas that a lot of people have just surrounding being seen.
Exactly. And as I shared with you, that's something that I've really had to work through. And I think the root of it can be slightly different for each person, but at its foundation is this wound we have around being seen and how that might hurt us. And it's actually the perfect entryway for the core of our conversation today because we're going to talk about relationships and love and intimacy and manifestation. This is the theme that's going on right now. But I really want to start first with what does manifestation mean to you? Because it's become such a popular, trendy word. And I think that it can have different meanings. Different people can be misunderstood. And I would love to hear your definition of it.
I love how you phrased that question to me. What does it mean to me? Because I think that's actually a really great way to answer from my perspective, like what manifestation is, because it really did change me it changed my life in such a really powerful way. And that might sound a little cheesy, but to kind of explain what I mean by that, I grew up in, for those who aren't familiar with my story, essentially a religious cult, and it was extremely disempowering towards women. I was literally told I would always be under a man's authority and have to obey a man. And I didn't have free will and agency in my life up until I got divorced at 29. My parents and family were way more controlling. My ex-husband was a lot more lenient, but I was not allowed to do certain things, and I was not allowed technically to divorce him. And then I ended up being like, this is bullshit. I'm an independent woman. I can do whatever I want. But it took me so long to get myself out of this mindset of looking to other people for approval and for permission. It's interesting because my partner now, he's reflected to me a few times over our relationship. He's like, you kind of like ask permission to do or be yourself sometimes. He's like, and you don't need my permission for anything. And it kind of struck me like, wow, there's still some of that way of thinking and being still subconsciously a little bit left over. But that was what manifestation really did for me. I was so disempowered and dependent on especially men my whole life and was very much waiting around for God and a man to save me for most of my life. It was kind of like you're desperately wicked and you're helpless. And I thought from when I got married, that would be my happily ever after. I'd be happy, I would have purpose, my life would be amazing. And then, of course, no one can make you happy and make you feel fulfilled and purposeful. So that was quite a letdown to me. The whole experience of marriage was quite a letdown in many ways to me. I started after that divorce, and it was January of 2020. COVID hit after I was really sad on my ass. I started doing my healing work. I started trying to understand. I knew I was deeply not okay. And I tried to figure out, like, why am I not okay? What's going on here? And start doing healing work. And it wasn't until December of 2021 that I discovered manifestation. I decided to move across the country by myself with my cat. I had dated somebody for about a year, and that relationship kind of fell apart and I just felt so broken and something was calling me to move to California and I'd never done anything like that. I'd lived with a man my entire life, like my family to then my ex-husband and then my best friend was with me for like 6 months and then I was living with my ex-boyfriend and I'd always been so dependent again on a man. All of my exes would help me with figuring out how to pay bills or they would manage the masculine things and so it was just so scary for me to think of not only living alone, but living far away from friends and kind of just doing life on my own. And I was at the airport and I discovered it. And I was like, you know what? This was, considered woo-woo my whole life, especially from religion. And it was out there and far-fetched. And I was like, I have nothing to lose. I am so brokenhearted. I am so scared. I'm so alone. what do I have to lose? Let me try this manifestation thing. And it changed my life because manifestation is really about stepping into your power and living from it, being the creator of your life. And it made me take radical responsibility for myself, for my feelings, for my thoughts, for my actions, for just me, who I was and how I was being. And I did so much work because of manifestation on, first of all, becoming aware of my thought patterns and my patterns of self-sabotage. And then so much work on changing them because your thoughts create your feelings to for the most part, some either conscious or subconscious thoughts, and then our actions stem from our thoughts and our feelings. And a lot of the times when we are self-sabotaging, which is just doing anything that's really blocking you from what's ultimately good for you and you ultimately want, it's because of thoughts and emotions that are not aligned with you showing up as that person who can call in the things that you want. And oftentimes your nervous system then gets dysregulated, and we can't seem to do the things that we want to do or be that person we want to be to create that business, call in that relationship, whatever, keep that relationship, whatever it might be. A lot of it comes down to thoughts, feelings, and the nervous system. I did so much work on those things, and it really changed me from the inside out. And it started off, I was just like, I want to finally manifest love. I'm tired of being so disappointed by love. I want to manifest an amazing apartment out in California, and I want to be financially independent and financially comfortable out there all on my own. I came to manifestation for those things, but I really just am so much more grateful for the person it's helped me become because I am now such a stable, happy, confident person because of how I've retrained myself. It was a lot of anxiety that I ended up working through. Anxiety is stemming from your thoughts, and when you can really get a hold of your thought life and take control back because we're not our brain. And I think it's so easy to think that we're our thoughts or think that we're our emotions. They feel like us, but they're not. And we actually can control our thoughts and control our mind. And that really is how you be in your power and create. And so that's what manifestation really, to me, it's taking radical responsibility for who you are and creating the things you want, figuring out how to empower yourself to be able to create them.
I resonate with so much of what you said. And a lot of it's been similar to my experience of manifestation. And I think if you're truly doing manifestation in a way that is sustainable and impactful, you are getting to know yourself. You are, like you said, taking responsibility for yourself, empowering yourself, and rewriting your beliefs, choosing what you actually want to believe about yourself and the world, and creating a new story for yourself instead of just taking on all the conditioning and the projections and what has been ingrained in you from a very young age. And that is how we're able to change our life. And it is the feelings that lead to the physical, tangible things that come into our life. It's created by us being who we want to be and being the people we're meant to be. And that comes first by knowing ourselves and understanding ourselves.
I think that's kind of why I shifted talking about manifestation to magnetism because just after diving so deep into this and really figuring out what worked and what led me to being in this state where I just feel like I'm magnetic, where I'm just like being and living my life and following my bliss and I'm magnetizing all the things that I wanted all along. And it really, the steps of manifestation that I teach are all about embodiment to help you be that person. So it's just about who you're being, which really though, like you know so well, comes down a lot to your thought life. But then the second piece for me, so that's like the being in flow with the universe is really getting those steps and embodying that person who has a thing so the universe can work with you. But then being in flow with you is a step that so many people miss. And that's where I find most people are blocking themselves with manifestation is they are at war with themselves. So, for example, for me, I had such a hard time with love for most of my life. And I couldn't seem to manifest that healthy, deep love that I wanted so bad. That was the deepest desire of my heart. I love love. I just have wanted a beautiful, healthy partnership. And I kept finding myself in so much pain surrounding that topic. And it really, when I finally got good with me, that's when everything changed. As I got more in flow with myself, which to me means having a really healthy, stable, secure relationship with yourself, knowing how to give yourself all the things that most women are looking to a man to give them. That was when the type of man I started attracting changed. I saw them become more emotionally available, and I've just seen so many more things come effortlessly, and I'm able to keep them because I'm not fighting myself. So often, the things that we're trying to call in or keep are not safe to our nervous system, and we don't know how to support ourselves in actually calling them in and holding them and keeping them. It's so much about who you are being and your relationship to yourself. And I think if you can get those two things locked in, like that to me is how you become magnetic. And it really is like, it's fun. It's almost like sitting back and watching. And it's not that I don't take massive action, I do, but there's this ease to it all. It doesn't feel like I'm struggling or like I'm striving. And that was really how I felt most of the time in my life and in my business beforehand. It's just a very different way of being that is so wildly attractive to abundance, to amazing people and opportunities. It's an effortless, easy energy.
Yeah, I love that shift. I'm big on words and being really mindful of the words we're using. So I love that shift from manifestation to magnetism because something that I've really connected to in my own manifestation journey is the concept of confidence and how if I'm confident in myself, that's manifestation. That is all I need for manifestation because if I'm confident in myself, I believe in myself, I like who I am, I can show up for myself, I can be honest with myself. And it kind of is the umbrella for all the other things that fall under everything you were talking about with manifestation. I also love everything you were saying around not needing to seek permission from other people and
Mm.
really learning how to validate ourselves. Because what I've noticed within myself and other people I've worked with, clients, friends, family, everyone really is the places we go the most for other people's approval or validation or for other people to tell us what to do are the places we most need to turn to ourselves and the places we most need to get to know ourselves and be honest with ourselves and trust ourselves. And I think when we feel safe enough to do that and have the tools to do that and the confidence to do that, then life does become so much easier. And we don't have to be constantly in our head thinking and striving and searching and seeking. We are just able to flow with life more.
Yeah, so many of the blocks that I had experienced in my business and just the things I wanted to manifest in my life came from looking to other people to give it to me or to help me with it or to give me permission that I was worthy of it, especially stuff with showing up differently on social media. It's like, oh, well, are people liking the content? Are people resonating? Am I getting good feedback? Instead of being like, no, I want to talk about different things online. I'm going to give myself permission and know that the people that are craving what I have to say are going to find me. It's just such a different energy, and people can tell, people can feel when you need something from them, even if it's just permission or liking you or accepting you. People feel that energy, and support is so important, but it's another form of codependency, I think, where we're relying on other people. And the more I have done so much work to be healthy in myself, but especially in this amazing relationship that I'm in, the more I'm just so clear on we need to give ourselves everything first and foremost. We cannot rely on other people for anything when it comes to feeling good about ourselves and creating the life of our dreams. My partner, I cannot get him to stop calling me, stop telling me he loves me, stop being affectionate towards me. But like you're saying, I've had those times where I'm in my head or I'm insecure and I'm asking for reassurance, and no amount of reassurance from him fills that void. It's only when I take that time for myself and I sit myself down, I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And I actually look at myself and how I'm showing up and give myself that validation. Like, you're doing a really good job. Yeah, you have some areas to work on, but I'm proud of you. Thank you. Self-appreciation is a really good way to validate yourself. And it changes everything. And suddenly my cup is full and anything from him is overflow. But I see so many relationships get really either bogged down or just ruined by expecting another person to meet your needs for you. Again, I have needs in the relationship, but I can't need him to make me feel good. I can only make me feel good. No one else can do that. And when you can master that, taking again responsibility for yourself, it really changes everything. And it puts you back in that flow. It's when I'm looking to other people that I've always gotten tripped up with what I'm trying to manifest because I'm not insourcing, I'm outsourcing. And that's just such a unreliable way to try to manifest and try to create things in your life.
We're not going to be perfect. We're going to have moments when we do notice that we're seeking another person's validation, or even our partner or a loved one will point it out to us. And it's the
Mhm.
ability to then sit with that and take a step back and be like, okay, what is that telling me about myself? What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And feeling safe enough within ourselves and making the decision to sit in that and be uncomfortable in that and grow in that. Because I think so many of us don't take that pause moment and are so afraid of being with ourselves or really looking at ourselves that we're always seeking the distractions and we don't take these opportunities to grow. I'm really passionate about people being able to be their own best friend. Have these conversations with yourself, whether it's in meditation or journaling or even talking to yourself on a voice note. Just having this relationship with yourself and putting that relationship above all others is so important.
Yeah, it's the foundation. That needs to be the lifeline. And then other people are, I don't know, this is maybe a silly example, but the oxygen tube. And then other people are maybe medicine that help you feel better. But like you have to be your own lifeline. And then it's all support. I get so much love, and we need love as humans from family, friends, from my partner. But if I'm looking to him to feel love for myself and I can't feel it without him, it suffocates the other person and it handicaps you. I love that, being your own best friend. I feel like that's a great way to put it. It changes everything. And you move through the world. I really like that word confidence. I feel like that is a great way to describe a lot of the energy that I feel like I'm in when I'm being magnetic. It's this confidence that everything is working for me and that anything meant for me won't pass me by. And I trust myself to show up in the ways I need to. And I trust that I'm good enough for everything meant for me. And it really is, I'm moving through the world with confidence. And that confidence, I've never felt more confident than I have at this point in my life. And it's because I've never been as connected to myself and known how to, I take care of myself. And I trust myself to do that now. I didn't used to, but I've built that with myself by over and over again when I'm falling apart and a mess, showing myself, okay, I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to listen to you. We're going to journal this out. We're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to hold you in these emotions. I'm going to go maybe make some soup or a bubble bath. I'm going to actually be there for you and take care of you and get you through this. And then I'm going to have you maybe go to the gym, get out of your head and feelings eventually after you felt them and validated them. And showing up for yourself that way, you start to trust yourself. And you really do move different when you know you've got your own back and you can take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you start this process of building that trust with yourself? Because I think that for some people, it can be easy to hear, like, oh, journal and take time by yourself and X, Y, and Z, but it can be really scary to make that jump. And I've had a lot of people come to me and say that they feel so much resistance to spending more time by themselves. I'm curious if you have any tangible tools or even rituals or action steps that you feel like could help people start to build that relationship.
I mean, I think number one is to make yourself start in small increments, but spend time with yourself because think about that. If one of the closest people in your life, say your mom, if every time you had a negative emotion, whether it be anxiety or sadness or feeling down on yourself, whatever it is, anytime you went to tell her about that to look for support, she was like, no, yeah, I'm not here for this. Like that, and that's what you're doing to yourself every time you avoid yourself because you have uncomfortable emotions coming up. It's telling yourself, I'm afraid of you. And I'm not there for you. I'm not here for this. You're on your own. I remember when I started to become, to me, I call this being emotionally available to yourself. And so many women are just like, where are the emotionally available men? And I'm like,
Mm.
you got to be emotionally available to yourself first to be able to even handle then somebody who's going to be emotionally available with you. It was shortly after a breakup, I I was so used to going to other people and just dumping all of my pain out for them to hopefully help sweep together for me and fix and help put me back together. I was like, I'm being such a drain on the people in my life. And a lot of my friends were busy. I had moved across the country. And so I was kind of like, I need to learn how to clean up this mess myself. And that was when I started being with myself in the intense emotions. And I just cried so much. I journaled so much anger and sadness out. And it was just that process of sitting with myself while I had those massive emotions. And it was so uncomfortable. And I just wanted to escape it or numb it half the time. But I really made myself keep coming back and trying to show up and sit with myself. And it gets easier and it gets less scary, and you become less scared of yourself and scared of those emotions. And I think journaling helps a lot. You can voice note yourself, but I think that process of being there for yourself to get it all out. And I would hug myself. It's honestly for me, it was a lot of my inner child that needed, because like I didn't have parents that were emotionally available to me. They didn't know how to be there for me in that way. And then I never knew how to myself. So really, I had to go all the way back to my inner child, and I'd sit there and hug her. And I would literally hug myself and be like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. This sucks. This is so hard. Just kind of what my inner little girl needed to hear way back when. They just need to be held and comforted. And that's what I needed. And the more I did that with myself, I started to really feel this connection to myself build. And that built so much trust, because then trusted I could be with myself and my emotions and sort them out and be okay and get myself to be grounded again after that scary, overwhelming flood of emotions took over me. And the emotions got more and more manageable. That to me was the biggest way I built trust, was actually showing up for myself and being there for myself when I was having a hard time. And then I also started to work on sticking to commitments, because I would always be like, oh, I'm gonna, eat better or go to the gym or not hang around that toxic person or not text that person. I would tell myself those things and I would always cave. So I really worked on my discipline with myself to, in small ways, try to keep my word, to be realistic about what I was telling myself I would do. So I wasn't gaslighting myself or creating more damage, but I would try to pick small things. And that also is a great way to build trust with yourself, to show yourself that you follow through on stuff for yourself and that you trust yourself. When you tell yourself you're going to do something, you're actually going to do it. A lot of this probably sounds like a romantic relationship, right? It really is kind of the same thing. We don't think about it, but we need that same effort and trust and attention that an intimate relationship needs. But people don't tell you you need to do that with yourself, but you do. And it makes all your other relationships so much better because you have this rock within yourself. It really makes you a lot more grounded.
It is just like a romantic relationship. And when you can have boundaries and trust with yourself, you can have boundaries and trust with another person. And that will also prevent codependency in a relationship because you're not bending and breaking your own rules over and over because you've held them within yourself so you can hold them with another.
If you want to manifest love, it really starts with you and your relationship with you. The healthier you are in yourself and the better relationship you have with yourself, the better you're going to attract. Boundaries are a great example of that. As within, so without.
But there's always the other side of the coin because there are the people who are so afraid of being with themselves and sitting with themselves and knowing themselves and always want to be in a relationship. And then there are the people who are more comfortable being by themselves and have a harder time opening up to others. And of course, there's everything in between. This is a large, nuanced spectrum. And I am definitely on the side of the spectrum who of the person who is really comfortable being alone and really confident in myself being alone and trust myself and got that feel grounded in that. But when it comes to being open in a romantic relationship, that's harder for me. So I'm curious what you would say to those people.
hmm I think that you're in a great place to open yourself up to another person because you have that stability in yourself. And so you know you can handle any hurt that might come from trying to do that with somebody and them not being a good fit or being able to do it well with you. This is something I've had to learn within my relationship. We need to be able to have a certain level of tolerance and resilience within ourself and our nervous system for people to mess up, because we are all flawed and we're all going to make mistakes. I think it's really good how grounded you are in yourself, because that's going to help you have some level of like tolerance for another person not being perfect and not always getting it right. I think I would, are you talking about like how to open up to somebody else or how to manifest somebody else that you can do that with?
It's so interesting that you distinguish between those two questions because my original question was actually the first one, but what I was just thinking about when you were talking is more so the second question. It can be really easy to go out into the world and meet someone or go on a dating app and meet someone and then not wanting to open up to them and knowing that you're capable of doing that and feeling ready to do that, but they're not the person you want to do that with. And so I think it's harder then to find the person that you do want to do that with.
For me, a huge piece of manifestation is clarity. It's my first step. And I know you've done a lot of clarity work, but for anybody listening, if you haven't gotten really clear on what you want and need from another person and a relationship, that's really helpful because it's like hopping into the car and just like driving aimlessly. You're not going to get anywhere, let alone somewhere that you want to be most likely, versus if you put an address in the GPS. So starting off with clarity, which does take a level of knowing yourself and what you're looking for. I think that's such a great way. I actually think to answer both of those, though, a huge thing that you can do to manifest a person, but then also to be able to manifest intimacy with a person that like and being able to open up to them is to curate your thoughts. It's so common. There's so much negativity out there surrounding dating right now, and there's plenty of examples, but we forget manifestation is literally the opposite of how humans are wired. We observe and we react. That is not how you create, and that is not being in your power. Being in your power is deciding what you want and operating that way and then calling it in. So going into dating and being really intentional, I am manifesting a healthy person. I'm manifesting a reciprocal person. I'm manifesting quality human beings. Every time you're getting on that app, every time you're going out on dates, going in positively. And you're going to have examples that are going to make you feel stupid for that, where you're like, oh, this person sucked. Why was I so optimistic? Oh, people just suck. And oh, that was silly. But no, you've got to stay committed. Even when you feel delusional, I think that's a good thing you can pull from the whole Delulu trend. It truly has been being delusional. What I mean by that is me staying so committed to what I wanted to call in. And it was really hard for me last year. I was going on a ton of dates and I was actually manifesting better and better people, and to the point where like they were really wonderful, kind people spending so much time and money on dates and getting to know me, and I was treated so well, but they were just not what I wanted. And I was getting, my family meant well, but they were just like, Jordan, no one's perfect, you're just kind of being unrealistic, what's wrong with them, give them more of a chance, you're being so hard. And I was just like, no, like I know what I want. And I'm so glad I stayed committed and a little bit delusional because I manifested the most incredible person. If you've been cheated on, you can, till you're blue in the face, be like, I won't get cheated on again. This man won't cheat on me, whatever. But if you've got a deep wound from that you haven't healed yet, you're not going to be feeling that way. And you're not going to be able to believe the affirmations you're telling yourself. A lot of the times we need healing to be able to shift those deep rooted beliefs that are opposite of and creating opposite of what we want. He's absolutely amazing and everything I wanted, perfect for me. I really wanted a man that was going to lead me spiritually and was going to be with me in creating a really healthy relationship. And I'm so well versed in relationship dynamics and manifestation and all this stuff. It's really impressive how he is also so well versed and so into this stuff and helps people himself heal. And I'm really glad that I stayed a bit delusional because there are not a lot of men out there like that, but I knew what I wanted and I became a match for it. There is an element that's not delusional. Like you need to be realistic in that area. You need to be a match. If you are hyper codependent and going to project all of your pain and trauma onto somebody else, but you're like, I want a really healed man, honey, he's not going to want to be with you. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of your shit. Like you got to clean that up. But then also applying this whole really curating your thoughts and being a bit delusional. I went into this relationship having done so much work on myself, but it's also been a mirror to all the work I still need to do. And it really showed me that I had some serious trust issues from just all of the abuse and pain that I went through in my life. And I've realized I deep down expected him to hurt me because I'd only known the people closest to me to hurt me. That's all I'd experienced. And I had to really do some deep work healing that pain that I had so I could rewire that because I was going into situations and he said to me, after a few months, I have not done anything to warrant the mistrust that you have when we have a disagreement. It's like you expect that I want to hurt you or do something. And he was like, I love you. I want to treat you well. And I was like, wow, I'm literally manifesting some of these problems because I'm going in expecting him to hurt me and expecting him to not treat me well. And that's not fair to him. And it's also creating the opposite of what I want. And so I've had to redo that and really open my heart up. And it takes a lot of vulnerability to choose to trust somebody. And he has made mistakes here and there, but overall, he's been an incredibly healthy, loving partner that has done way more good and helped me heal way more than anything, mistakes he's made or shortcomings. You create what you expect on such a practical, simple level. And so I think if you're really wanting to manifest somebody you can open your heart to, or you are with somebody and you want to open your heart to them, continuing to choose the outcome you want, which is like, I want this person to be a safe person for me. I want this person to be able to hold me and be a safe person to be intimate with. Like anything that you're wanting from that situation, you have to keep believing in that and opening your heart to that.
Yeah, there's so much that you just said that I want to touch on, and that I agree with wholeheartedly. And I think a lot of what you're saying comes back to starting with that relationship with yourself
Mhm.
and starting with getting the affirmation and the validation from yourself. And another piece that I wanted to touch on was we don't need to go into relationships perfectly. We don't
Mhm.
need to be fully healed and fully complete in order to have a really beautiful, healthy relationship. And I think that that's one place that I can sometimes get
Mhm.
on myself because I am that Virgo. I do have that Virgo energy, and I want to be perfect and I want to be able to show up perfectly and to have it all figured out all the time. But a healthy relationship, you're both in a really good place and you're growing together and you're being mirrors for each other and showing each other more places to heal and more places to know yourself. And there are certain things that come to light in a relationship that you simply can't see by yourself. And this kind of brings us back to the very first question that we were talking about, how other people see us in a way that we can never see ourselves. And that's one of the beauties in relationships and one of the opportunities in relationships. And so we have to be willing to be seen imperfectly. And we also have to be willing to accept our partner as imperfect. And I also wanted to touch on what you're saying about being a little delusional because I've had the same conversation with family and friends of like, oh, maybe he's good enough. Like, don't be so nitpicky or whatever. But for me, really, I can say with confidence, yeah, this guy was great. And I know he's not my person because I know myself and I know how it feels. And this brings me to another topic I wanted to talk about is about dating with your intuition and trusting
Mhm.
your intuition. And I really lean on my intuition now to guide me and not needing to follow the perfect rules to date or not needing to go on X amount of dates every month to find your person. I really tune into myself and what my intuition is telling me. So I'm curious what your relationship is like with your intuition and what you think about it in terms of dating.
Absolutely. I think it is so important. And it can get a little tricky, and I'll touch on that in a second with where I had a little bit of trouble. But I definitely listened to my intuition. And every single person I have dated up until I went on that date with my partner on May 17th this year, every single other person inside, I kind of was just like, I don't think they're my person. And he was the first time I ever was like, I had this excited, happy feeling. And I was like, I really think he could be that person. And it was the first time I ever felt that potential and excitement going out with somebody. And I just felt so good about him. And it was just a yes within me towards him. I'd never felt that yes. It had always been like, I don't know about this, or probably not, or this isn't really what I want, but I'll give it a chance. It was always giving a chance, and it feels so different. And this relationship has been so different. And he truly is so much of what I said I wanted. And that's where it can get a little tricky with again, get clear on what you want. It's been a very interesting experience for me. And I feel so deeply like he is the right person for me. And we are so amazing together. And just what we have is so special and beautiful. But I definitely had moments of questioning because I did realize that some of my expectations or some of the desires I wrote down were a little codependent. I still had a little bit of the I like a feminine masculine dynamic, but I think it can sometimes be we still have a little bit of like that Disney princess thread that colors women's expectations with dating sometimes. And he's had to be a few times like, babe, I'm not here to take care of you. I just had those things that I thought were romantic, but then realized, okay, this is a little codependent actually, or a little rescue savey, some of the ways where it's like when I'm having a really hard day, I was kind of expecting him to like solve my problem for me a little bit, like, and like be the man. And it's like he can't solve my problems. And like that's not fair to expect that of him. So that was one area that I felt like I had to really think through and be like, okay, this doesn't feel good and this isn't what I want, but actually he's right. And having shifting what I think I want slash my expectations a little bit is actually I had to really get clear on my values, and I really value a healthy relationship. And just from what I read in our conversations about codependency and what a healthy relationship is, and I asked friends, and I was like, okay, he's actually right. And what I wanted was a little out of line. And then the other thing was we had about a month where we were really rocky and fighting all the time. And I was like, damn, are we just not aligned? And we're not going to be able to work through this. I had to really dig deep to figure out what was my past trauma and wounding versus what was us not being quote unquote compatible. And that was where I was having trouble with my intuition because I genuinely felt so confused about whether we weren't compatible or it was like we both kind of found an area where he has some trauma and makes him a bit avoidant, and I have some trauma that makes me a bit anxious. And our attachment styles are kind of different here, and we both need to do a little bit of work on ourselves to find that healthy, secure middle ground in this. And that ended up being what it was. But when you have problems, I think it can be sometimes a little tricky. And I'm really grateful for I got back in therapy in October. Just some personal things I was dealing with more so than anything that ended up actually affecting the relationship a little bit. And I'm so glad I got back in therapy because we had some great conversations and some concerns I had. She was able to walk me through these things and be like, yeah, that's maybe not the most healthy expectation or way to show up in a partnership. That's not the purpose of a partnership. Just old things that I had from my past relationships or my upbringing. And it helped me sort through that. So I really believe intuition is so powerful and important, but I also think it needs to be paired with being really grounded in what your values and worldview and belief system are, because that's what really helped me navigate when my intuition was not to be found anywhere because I was so confused by these things that I was like what the hell is going on here? Why is it so hard to just be together right now? One of us is getting upset all the time. So it came down to a root understanding of expectations and what's healthy, and like we kind of just had to sort through some of that.
Yeah, I think that what can be tricky about our intuition is often the places that we need the most healing, we're furthest from our intuition. It can be really hard to tap into it. And again, when we build that relationship with ourselves, we build that connection and conversation with our intuition. And it's a muscle that we have to strengthen. And if we don't have it, it can feel really quiet and feel confusing. And that is why I think knowing our values is really important. But I think when we're really tapped into our intuition, we don't have to even have a list because we're just fully in touch with what is true for us in that moment. And we have clarity on that grounded feeling that's overarching. Because sometimes I think when we write down a list, we can be too in our head. When we're writing things down, we're getting that clarity. Even when we're writing down our values, if we're not doing it in a certain way that takes this element out, it can be really from the mind. And one thing I think is important is looking at whatever list you created or whatever values you wrote down and asking yourself why to make sure that it is a true desire. It is truly something that you want and not coming from that mind place or not coming from the shoulds or the conditioning. And then you can hold on to those as this North Star and this check-in point. But before that, they can come from not truly what you want, like you were saying with some of what ended up on your list. But when our intuition is really strong, the list doesn't even always need to be there because we just can rely on that feeling and get out of our head and into our body and our heart. But we have to have that relationship with our intuition in order to do so.
For me, at least in this particular situation, it was my mind that ended up getting me out of that kind of stuck point because I think my feelings were kind of like, I don't know about this. This might not be aligned. This might not be what I want. That was what I was feeling. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with my therapist and with a couple of friends that I really trusted. I've kind of always had this idea of relationships of union and blending, which they are. It took him and my friends and my therapist being like, that doesn't mean you can't still have these things you create together, but it's okay to have these separate things and for them to be seemingly not compatible, and you'll have your together thing. So I don't know, for some of the stuff that I guess I just from growing up was like, no, we need to want the same things or we're not compatible. And that's something you need to ask. What does the other person want? If you want different things, you're not compatible. But that's not necessarily true. I had such a narrow view of differences being okay in the relationship, which was a codependent leftover that I had from my experiences growing up in such a extreme religious community in my marriage. And it was very much like we were just attached and doing our thing. And so I've had to reframe that no, I can have my own thing and he can have his own thing, and then we can have our thing. And that's actually healthier. So it was kind of my head that actually needed, my head was affecting my intuition because my or maybe I don't know, maybe that was just feelings and they weren't my intuition. I'm not sure quite how to, maybe you have thoughts on that, but it was really I needed my head to get into a different frame to be able to feel better about it and feel good again in the relationship and be like, okay, no, this actually will work.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting everything you're bringing up. And I think this is a whole other conversation I could go talk for hours about. I think that what you, it comes down to what your intuition, I mean, I guess how you define intuition, but also I believe that everyone's intuition speaks to them in different ways. And I don't believe that it's for most people just our feelings. I don't think we should just live guided off our feelings. I think our intuition speaks to us differently. So it sounds like you really did navigate, you had to remove some blocks and some past beliefs that were impacting how you felt to get to what was true for you.
Hmm.
And so for me, I don't think that that was not your intuition. I think it was just emotions that were from the past impacting your true beliefs about what you needed and wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't get to that, I think, because I had these ideas from the past and feelings from the past. And I was having feelings that I don't know, he might not be what I want and need, that were coming from ideas about relationships. They actually don't align with what I actually believe is true about a healthy relationship, what I actually want. But it was definitely some sifting of old mindsets and beliefs that I had to clear out to even get to it, I guess.
Exactly. And that's why doing that work with ourselves to bring it all full circle, knowing ourselves, having that relationship with ourselves is what needs to come first because only then can you understand how your intuition works and listen to it. Only then can you know what is in your way, what your blocks are. Only then can you move forward with confidence and bring in, magnetize all the things you want. So it starts with that relationship with yourself. So this Valentine's Day, if there's anything you do, I would say it would be to sit down and have a date with yourself, spend some time with yourself, get to know yourself, build that trust with yourself, and learn to love and accept and really embrace yourself.
Self-love is where it starts. Yeah. And I guess that was that relationship with myself piece that I needed to, and that's what happened. I like came back and really sat with what do I believe is a hallmark of a healthy relationship. What does it actually look like? Let me revisit these ideas I have, and I got re-clear based on new information from trusted sources on what a healthy relationship is looks like to me, and then what I want based off of that. So it really was me sorting myself and my desires and my belief systems that then allowed me to be able to come back to the relationship and be good in it again. It was my own work, yeah.
Yeah, and it's those moments where things pop up where we can't hear our intuition or we're coming up against a block with ourselves or we're feeling too emotional or our minds controlling us where we can be like, okay, this means that I need to take some more space with myself and have that check-in moment with myself. And so we have to watch for those check-in points.
And I was able to do that with myself and trust myself with it, whereas I haven't in the past because I do have a really good relationship with myself and I trust that I don't self-abandon anymore because I was a little afraid to change what I thought I wanted because I used to just completely throw what I wanted and needed out the window just to keep a person or a relationship in the past. But I've built that trust with myself that no, I'm not going to abandon myself. I have my back. I trust myself with that. So I was able to not be afraid to take a look at what I think I want and what I think my relationship that I want looks like and shift some things because I knew I wouldn't be doing it in a way that would be disservicing myself or abandoning myself.
Yeah, I've had those things pop up too. And it doesn't when we have that strong relationship with ourselves, it doesn't mean that everything's perfect or we automatically know how to show up so aligned in every situation, but it means that we have that connection to come back to. And the stronger that it builds, the easier that it becomes, and the quicker we can kind of reroute when we fall off track.
100%.
Do you have any last tips or rituals or pieces of advice or anything coming to you to share for someone who is seeking some sort of solace this Valentine's Day?
The biggest thing that I've had to really learn is to trust myself and to trust the timing. And I think when you do have trust for both, it really makes everything so much better. It's just so ironic to me. My partner and I matched on Hinge when I was in LA and I was still living with my ex because we broke up in January and our lease didn't end until end of August. So that sucked. It was hard. I'm proud of how we navigated it. But I got back on Hinge around May to try to just like I was like, I need to just be seeing other people. I need to try to move on, even though I'm still living with this person. We had a two-bedroom, so we were just living as roommates. But we matched on Hinge and we chatted for a little bit. And he gave me his number, and I never texted him. And then, but I was like, oh, I'll text you. And then I never did. But he never opened it because he had met somebody in person. And I moved back to the East Coast in September. He moved back in November. And it wasn't until then, this last May, literally a year after we matched on Hinge, we had both moved back to the East Coast and he re-downloaded Hinge out of the blue. I was about to stop dating and take a break because I was like, this is a waste of my time. I don't need to be spending time and energy on this. The right person will come if they're meant to. I just want to hang out with my girlfriends, focus on my business. And then but he re-downloaded it and I was just like bored. I was a little bummed because I had ended things with somebody that I dated for like 6, 7 weeks. So I was just looking on Hinge to like cheer me up and remind me like there's lots of great men. I'll meet the right one eventually and I really don't need to focus on this. And I had no plans to message anybody. And I saw I had a message and I was like, who messaged me? And it was Paxson. And he had re-downloaded the app and he had an unread message. Me telling him a year earlier I would text him, which should have been a red flag to him that I never texted him. But he reached out and he was like, well, he looked at my profile because he saw we had really good conversation, in-depth conversation. And he saw I listed New York as my location. He was like, wow, are you actually still on this app and single? And are you on the East Coast? And I saw it. So I responded and I was like, hey, actually, I am. And we started voice noting and chatted a bit actually before we met up and then met up. And he used to go on the same walk I would go on in Palisades Park, which sending so much love to them with all the fires right now. But we would literally walk the same walk. He was on that beach. I lived a block from the beach and we never met in person. And both of us were not ready to meet each other then. We both had still healing work to do. And I was so mad too. That May 2023, I was just like, I'm just ready for my life partner. I'm tired of another failed relationship and quote unquote failed. It really was teaching me everything I needed to be ready for Paxton. But our story has made me understand on such a deep level just how timing is everything. And the universe knew what I wanted and it wanted to give it to me, but it was like, you ain't ready for this, girl. You got a lot of codependent shit and a lot of self-love shit that you need to get in place before you're ready for him. And he had some stuff to do too. And the stuff we've navigated as a couple, some pretty high level, deep shit that we've been able to navigate ourselves in terms of just figuring out places where we're not on the same page or one of us is hurt. We've done a great job and neither of us would have been able to have the conversations we've had, be responsive and not reactive, hold space for an opposite perspective when we're hurt or mad. And I'm really proud of the way we navigate conflict and ruptures and repairs. And if you haven't called that person in yet, ask the universe what you need to learn. Show me what I need to work on. And view everything happening to you as preparation for the amazing relationship that you're calling in because I really don't think the universe keeps anything from us. It really it just, I think, lovingly doesn't give it to us until we're ready for it so that we can actually enjoy it and keep it. Because I've seen a lot of people, and I myself have manifested stuff and then not known how to keep it because it wasn't safe to my nervous system, or I didn't have the skills yet, or the self-awareness yet, self relationship to myself, support within myself to be able to handle it. And so trusting yourself and trusting the universe is so important for navigating love. And the more I root in those two trusts, the more things flow for me.
I really love that you ended with that because I remember when I left our session together and I journaled and I talked to my mom and I processed, what I came back to was trust your timing, trust yourself, trust your path. And I think if we can do that, especially if we're doing the healing work we need to do, we're sitting with ourselves, we're knowing with ourselves, if we're doing all the things, then all we can do is trust and hold on to that trust, be a little delusional and stay the path, and it will come when it's time.
And the more you fall in love with yourself and your life and you create, like, I love people use the term honeypot, be that beautiful, magical person with a beautiful, magical life. I don't say magical meaning, oh, you've got millions of dollars and you live at resorts. It really, it's just a life that's so authentic to you and rich with the things that light you up and give you purpose and fulfillment. And like when you're in that, you're going to magnetize people.
Yeah. Oh, Jordan, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much. Last question that I end every conversation with is living intuitively wild means living dedicated to your true, authentic self, no matter what. How do you feel like you live intuitively wild?
I am really true to myself. I'm really proud of how I really don't do anything that doesn't feel good to me. By feel good, I don't mean, okay, going to the gym doesn't always feel good, but it feels good overall and on a value level. I don't do things that feel icky to me, like on a principle level or feel inauthentic. And when things happen or um, I'm engaging with somebody or they're saying something and it doesn't feel right, I bring stuff up. I'm very, very true to myself, but not in a way that's like domineering of other people or making them feel like they have to be a certain way for me. I used to be a little bit like a little that way in my relationship, in any of my relationships. We need to be the same. I think that's something I've grown in. You don't need to be the same. You just need to be able to appreciate them for who they are and it work together with you. But I'm so myself. And I'm really proud of that because I used to be a chameleon. I used to literally just be whoever I needed to be for whatever social situation or event or whatever to be liked. And I was constantly trying to figure out what other people wanted me to be and then trying to become that. And it was an exhausting and depressing way to live. It creates so much anxiety. If you're doing that and you have anxiety, that's why. The peace I have, I just feel so at ease most of the time because I'm so committed to being in alignment with my authentic self and I trust so deeply like anything not meant for me, like I don't need to worry about it. It's a really beautiful way to live.
It really, really is. Okay, please share with the audience where they can connect with you, find you, any offerings you have that you want to share, anything.
Oh, so you can find me at Jordan Laurelle on Instagram. That's JordanLaurelle. I have the extra little LE. On
Mhm.
Instagram, my podcast is the Magnetic Muse podcast. And I am doing events in New York on a more regular basis. I am actually co-hosting an event with another coach friend of mine. And we're focusing on helping people manifest love, but by diving into self-love and helping them remove any blocks or get awareness of any areas they might be working against themselves. But I'm trying to do more community events in Manhattan on a regular basis to bring you guys together for vision boarding or higher self work or healing, whatever it might be. And I'm hoping to have more resources available and get so passionate about love and manifesting love specifically because it was one of the biggest pain points of my life and the deepest desire that I had. So stay tuned. Anything will be announced on my platforms.
Yes, our deepest pain is often our deepest desire and our purpose. So it sounds like you are really owning that, and everything that you share will be linked below. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was such a wonderful conversation. It was so lovely to connect with you again. You're such a beautiful spirit.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.